Hi there. Today we are going to talk about how to score A's on your finals. Finals week is right around the corner, so it's important that we talk about what some good study skills are, some good strategies to approach finals week, some goals that you can set for the end of the semester, how to take care of yourself, and how to really prepare through reading strategies, studying strategies, and overall taking care of yourself to be successful for finals week. First, it's important that we evaluate our own study skills, so I want you to be thinking about what it is that you can change about your current study habits. Is it you're a procrastinator? Is it that when you study you can't retain information? What is it that you overall want to improve? And I want you to take a minute to generate a list of both your strengths and your weaknesses in your study habits, where you can improve, maybe things that you do well, and then think about a goal that you are willing to set in order to make these changes for your upcoming finals week. So take a moment just to think about that for a second. All right. So now that you've thought about it just for a little bit, think about that goal as we go through this. Think about how you're going to establish that goal, how it is that you're going to create change with that goal. First, it's important to think about our note taking and textbook readings. We all have tons and tons of reading, so there's a method that you can use called the SQ3R, which we'll talk about more in depth here in a minute. But basically, it's looking for main ideas. You want to be utilizing active reading techniques to be able to get engaged with your text. That's going to allow you to retain that information more and keep you more engaged as you read, as you go along. So you really want to understand what the terms and your vocabulary are within your textbook so that you know definitions to things, you're understanding the main concepts and so forth. Begin to write questions within your margins if there's a vocab word you don't understand or maybe a question that you have in regards to the main idea. Be writing those within your margins. It's that whole annotating system. You're basically dissecting your textbook so that you're grasping the main concepts, but you're also actively engaged. So when you do this, you want to be reviewing as you go along. You want to be testing your knowledge. Is it something I'm comprehending? And make sure that you eliminate any sort of distractions that can interrupt this process. So find that environment that is conducive to you. Time of day is a really, really important factor. So when you implement your pre-reading strategies, you want to make sure you think about, okay, am I better in the mornings? Am I better in the afternoons? Or am I better in the evening? Think about that time of day as well as the location of where you're doing your reading so you can fully focus when you're going through reading and annotating your textbook. Okay. As far as note taking, you want to make sure you're taking good notes. When you go to class, you don't want to assume that everything that you're taking notes on is on the PowerPoint. You want to take that PowerPoint with you and add additional information that your teacher is saying. Okay. And as you read, you also want to be taking notes, highlighting, asking questions, and utilize your own words both in lectures and when you read. When you put things in your own words, you're going to better understand that as opposed to just writing it down verbatim. Okay? And then be reading over both your notes and your chapters more than once so that way you're retaining that information. You're continually reviewing. Okay? So when you're reading along, you want to make sure you're reading carefully and determine what the goal is within the chapter as well as in your notes. Okay, what is it saying? What is it doing? And then being able to write that down in your own words and in your own summary somehow, some way. Okay. Now, looking more in depth into the SQ3R method, this is a really valuable method for a lot of students. First, you're going to survey your chapter. You're going to look over that material very critically. You're going to skim through and look at the headings and the summaries and be writing notes in that sequence. Okay, so getting that overall idea of what it is that you're reading. You also want to mark down those questions. Okay, so taking those questions and turning them or taking those headings and turning them into questions and being able to write the questions out. Okay, so for example, if you begin chapter 3 and you see that there's learning objectives, take those learning objectives and turn those into questions. And then as you read, be looking for the answers to those questions because that's again going to help keep you engaged in your chapter instead of just reading and then finding yourself falling away from the chapter and what it is that you're reading. You want to really test whether you're recalling this information as well. So this is a huge aspect to this method is the recall part. You want to be able to mentally visualize and sketch in your own words the high points of this material. Okay, because this is going to check your understanding and it forces you to challenge yourself whether or not you're retaining the chapter or your lecture notes overall. It forces you to think. And then review. You're going to look at all over again and see how well you can recall that information. So if you have to sit there and write a summary of what it is that you just read, if you want to mark down additional notes, identify any points that you find that you're not retaining or that you need fixing. Okay, so that's going to be a critical component to this method as well. All right. And then as you go along, you can be writing your own exam questions, create your own practice test based on the readings. And that's going to teach you what you have learned. All right. Next, your studying experience. This is something that is ongoing. You want to continually be studying through that review. Okay, so when we review, we should be reviewing within 24 hours of any new learned material. This is going to help put that from your short term into your long term memory. When you sit down for studying, you want to establish what your goal is, both your short term and your long term. If it's, I want to get an A in my semester, let's break down what the smaller steps are going to be in order to achieve that. Okay? Is it I need to take a week out to be studying little bits here and there? Is it establishing that review component to my schedule? All right, so create that plan and schedule that time to study. That is going to be a huge, huge piece to the success of your studying experience. If you need to, create study groups and collaborate with other people. That could be a really good tool to be able to sit there and question whether or not you know the material, being able to explain it, and being challenged about whether or not you know it. When you're studying, you want to make sure that you allow time for breaks. You don't want to do too much at one time. So, again, think about the time of day that you're studying, when your mind is most alert, because that's going to be critical. You want to be studying your most challenging subjects within that time of day and allow time for breaks so that way you can sit down and be fully focused and not tire your mind out faster. When you're studying, you want to make sure too that you're making a list of what needs to be completed, okay? So take it one week at a time. If you have to create a to-do list for that day and say this in today I'm going to complete this, um, make a to-do list for the day. If you need to do that for the whole week, you could do it for the whole week, all right? Either way, you want to be using a planner. You want to be sketching out what your semester is going to look like as well as what your weeks are going to look like. And then make that as consistent as possible. If you can have a consistent schedule with a routine that includes not only your classes, but as well as study times, job, whatever else it may be, you want to keep it as consistent as possible because that's going to help facilitate that schedule for you and it's going to get you into that easier. Okay, so you want to work on something most difficult first as well. That sounds maybe kind of crazy, but when you work on something most difficult, you're jumping into it, you're thinking about it, that's going to help you with procrastination because you get your mind going. Now, on the contrast, you could also start by beginning with a project that maybe you enjoy more because that will trick your mind into getting started. So, if you are taking an art class and a math class and you just can't find that getting into math is easy for you, maybe start with that art project. Get your mind going, facilitate that thinking. Um, that's really going to help with your procrastination. Now, memory techniques. I don't know if you've ever heard of mnemonics, but mnemonics is a good system to use. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally that we utilize in math. That's a good form of a mnemonic. That's going to help you with memory techniques. Mind maps is a good visual representation of something that you could utilize. Charts, Cornell notes, that's a really good way to be able to organize and break up that information in a way that it makes sense to you, that it's being put into your own words as well. And then you want to review those notes more than once or twice a week. a week, okay? And then be quizzing yourself over the material. So utilizing practice tests, note cards, however it is that you're going to challenge your brain. Okay, you want to organize both book and lecture notes into your own words, like we talked about through studying, and then being able to understand what it is that you're learning as opposed to just memorizing it. It's one thing to memorize something, but whether or not you really understand it is a huge factor to that. Okay, so create associations somehow. Um, this helps that building process in your memory bank. All right, and then you want to be able to learn actively. People remember 90% of what they do, 75% of what they see, and 20% of what they hear. Okay, so being able to learn actively what it is that you're going to engage in to help yourself remember. Whether that's reciting and repeating, repetition can be the mother of learning. Reciting out loud in your own words helps enhance that memory even more. For some people, it's writing things down over and over again. Okay? And then make sure that you reduce any sort of interference with your environment. Okay, you want to make sure that you're in a place that you can be focused, you can be learning effectively, and reviewing those notes again in that time. Studies also have proven that in order for us to store information long term, we must review within that 24 hours or less. So, by getting in the habit of that same day review, will increase your chances of remembering by over 70%. Okay, so that's why I really enforce that review process. That's going to be really valuable to you. Okay, so utilizing that schedule with distributing learning as well as just simply keeping a positive attitude. That I can attitude can be really effective, okay? If you're constantly telling yourself, I can't, those negative feelings will subject you to chances of failure, okay? We want to have that positive thought, okay? So replacing the I can't do it with it's not that easy, it's tough, but I can accept this challenge and I will overcome this challenge. So utilizing that positive attitude is a really valuable process. Next, two of the best studying techniques that you can have is that distributed practice, so implementing that schedule that spreads out your study time and has that routine each week, and practice testing, making up your own test within your own words. Those are the two best things that you can do to be most successful in your finals week. So I can't encourage you enough to try those two things out. Next, preparing for finals, you want to be able to become familiar with the teacher's style and the format. What type of test are they going to use? Is it multiple choice? Is it essay? Is it going to be true and false? What type of test are you going to be challenged with? And then as you're listening in class, you want to note down anything additional that your professor is saying that you feel is going to be important for that upcoming test. So make sure that you understand that material before you move on to new material. All right. So in math class, if we don't grasp those main concepts in the beginning of the semester, then as we move along, we're going to find ourselves getting more and more behind. So understanding something as opposed to just memorizing it is really valuable. Again, review that material as frequently as possible and try and apply it. When we apply something, it's more likely that we're going to retain it, we're going to be able to understand it because we're utilizing that information as opposed to going to class, learning, and then leaving and not using any of that material. Okay, so again, know what kind of test your teacher plans to give and that testing format so you know how best to begin preparing for that final exam. Now, how to approach different types of exams. We all have different types of exams that are going to challenge us. Both multiple choice, matching, true and false, essay exams. This can all evoke test anxiety for many people. All right. Now, with test anxiety, it's important that we sit in the front of the class to reduce any sort of distractions. Another system that many people use is starting from the back of the test. This helps sometimes reduce that anxiety for many students by starting in the back or starting in the middle of the test. You also want to approach this very confidently. You want to have that positive attitude going with an I can attitude as opposed to I can't. All right, that helps with that test anxiety as well. Starting with easier questions first will will help build that confidence for you. So if you find that you're struggling with questions along the way, do all of the ones that are easier to begin with. Especially with a multiple choice exam, you might find that information to other questions that you don't know is within those easier questions. So really looking for those connections in your test as you go along. You want to employ the cover up strategy when using multiple choice exams. So when you approach that, be reading the question first and cover up all the answers. Then, as you read the question, formulate your own answer in your mind before looking at the answers, because then it'll be more likely that you can pinpoint what the answer is to that question rather than reading and being confused between either B or C. Okay, so that cover up strategy is a really good system for multiple choice test. Okay, you want to be eliminating the unlikely answers first. So if you have two alternatives, that's great that you've narrowed it down to 50-50, but then really try to deduce, what it is that the answers are saying. Which one makes more sense? Which one gives more of a detailed answer? Because most likely the more detailed answers are going to be the correct answer. All right. On math tests, you want to be looking for answers that are more middle of the range. So when you're answering a question and it asks you what the height of a mountain is, you want to eliminate the high and the low answer. Okay, what is the most extreme? What is the lowest? And look at those middle of the range numbers so that you can decide which one is more precise, which one makes more sense. Okay, and then you want to watch out for that not true. Okay, you want to remember to reverse your procedure and eliminate truth. Okay, so use the true false methods and being able to find what makes more sense. Be paying attention to qualifiers such as usually, none, always, never, all but the following. All right, and then you want to anticipate what the correct answer is before you read all. Okay. Now, with true and false questions, you want to watch out for those absolutes like always, never, all, or none. If those are present, they're usually false. Okay, and then again, more detailed and specific answers are usually going to be true. All right, and then as you go through, you want to make sure that you're not leaving anything blank. So if you're skipping things over and you're answering easier questions first, you want to make sure you go back through and that you've answered every question. It's better to get something wrong than to completely leave it blank and miss out on points completely. Okay. Lastly, any unusual statement that you see in both multiple choice and true and false questions, those are usually going to be false. Okay, so you want to be really dissecting what the answers are saying and be looking for the details in the answers and what makes the most sense. All right. As far as essay exams, you want to be reading as carefully and scanning that over. You want to watch out for those keywords like discuss, compare, and define. They're usually going to ask you to define something, to discuss something, so paying attention to what that means. All right. You want to watch your time. You want to make sure that you have the opportunity to draft out what it is that you're going to write, whether that's with an outline, a few notes. Use those critical thinking skills. Have that scratch piece of paper to note any ideas, facts, figures, and create that brief outline with your major points. Okay, and sometimes you'll get that partial credit for that outline if you utilize that. But one of the most important things to think about with an essay exam is using good grammar and being able to proofread. If your teacher finds that your grammar is not good and you're not proofreading and you have many spelling errors, that is going to be an area where your teacher will deduct points. Okay, so making sure that you're looking over that carefully. Okay, and lastly, with execution, you want to make sure that you're listening to your teacher's last minute instructions and you're not rushing through that test. You want to make sure that you read all your instructions as carefully and as thoroughly as possible. Okay? And use that process of elimination if you have to for difficult questions. Remember that your test questions will give you information, especially in multiple choice. So being able to go through and make those connections, look over the test and make sure it's complete. You don't ever want to change an answer unless you have concrete evidence as to the fact that that answer is wrong or you did mark the wrong answer. So if you know for a fact that that's not correct and you have evidence to show that, then I would change your answer. But otherwise, always go with your gut. All right. And then ask for any clarification if need be. Now, I know through finals week we all get really stressed out. We have many things that, you know, we do that stresses us out, or we're not eating healthy. We find that we're eating more junk food, we're not sleeping, and we're getting in a funk. Okay, so it's important that we don't overextend ourselves. We want to be healthy throughout this. So try and maintain a healthy diet. That's going to help with your brain and helping to keep you focused and concentrated in class and on test day. So healthy diets, exercising, and making sure that you're sleeping. Pulling an all-nighter to study is not going to be helpful for you. Getting enough sleep is going to help that make sure that your brain is focused and alert. Okay. And then watching that caffeine intake. I know coffee is a really helpful thing for a lot of students, but it can evoke a lot more anxiety. All right. So you might find that you're more stressed out, you're having more of a negative attitude. Caffeine can really inhibit that within you. All right. So remember to have that positive attitude and watch your caffeine intake. Okay. You want to make sure that you have outlets throughout this process. So whether that's yoga, having coloring books, if you need to, have a run, um, sit down for 5 minutes just to relax. Find that outlet for yourself and be good to yourself. Relaxing can be really beneficial so that you can do well in your finals week. Also, with not overextending yourself, having that good time management is a really critical piece to doing well in finals week. Okay, so if you have that consistent routine and you're implementing that good study schedule, that too is going to help reduce all of that stress for you. Okay, so all in all, be good to yourself. Work hard to study and have a good study schedule, and make sure that you're spacing it out appropriately and not cramming and waiting till the last minute. Okay. Now, we talked about identifying a goal in the beginning, and I think it's important that we all identify our goals in all these different areas. So, what is my environment going to be? Where am I going to study? What's going to be the best thing for me? And what time of day? All right, is that morning? Is that afternoon? Is that night? What goals am I going to set to accomplish all of this within finals week? How am I going to get those A's? How am I going to make sure that I work hard to do this and I don't get so stressed out? So think about that right now. What was the goal that you thought about in the beginning, and what is it that you're going to work hard to implement right now? Is there a reward that you'd like to give yourself? Okay, so if it's that you do really well, you're gonna watch Netflix for an hour, or you're gonna go get ice cream or hang out with friends. What system could you implement that would help you achieve that goal? And then what tools or resources are needed? Do you need to utilize a tutor? Do you need to go to a classroom and utilize a whiteboard or a chalkboard, PowerPoint, Cornell Notes, whatever tools you need to assist you throughout this process, by all means use them. You know yourself best, you know what you need. All right, so think about that as well. What goal is it that you're going to set today to make sure that you have a successful finals week? All right, so think about that now. Look at your list of your strengths and your weaknesses and decide on a goal that you know is going to be realistic. Okay, it's easy to set a goal, but think about how am I actually going to do it? What is realistic for me to complete, and what strategies can I utilize? And then don't be afraid to ask for help. If you find that you're truly struggling and you're not understanding concepts, the Learning Hub can assist you in tutoring in math, science. We will help with writing, reading, study skills, and time management. So if you need help with creating that study schedule, that is something we can do here at the Learning Hub. To make an appointment, you can see that there's our location at Brookins room 462. You may call or email or stop by in person to make an appointment, and we would be happy to assist you. Okay, so I thank you for listening, and I hope that these tips and strategies were helpful for you to be successful in your finals week. All right, so good luck and best wishes.